Cause a lot of sisters acting too crazy, and them not tough like this, rough like this, and them not nice like this. Some can't take it when you talk true sense, rather hear the words that glorify nonsense. Yes, and I got my brains, and I'm pretty like my mama. I don't wanna pick your brains, I just want the microphone. Take the mask off your face and look at me face to face. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I wanna share my love, but it's gotta be with someone who's precious. You're never gonna get my love, accepting that you're real precious. You're never gonna cramp my style, baby, cause I get a lot of pleasure. And if you wanna test my style, you better have a whole lot of measure. Cause I'm a rock back chick, never tag along the never look back chick. Trendy, a little crazy, intelligently singing rock back chick. No sticks, no stones, or any kind of weapon don't belong here. I don't wanna break no bones, I just want a microphone. Take the mask off your face and look at me face to face. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, 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 good morning.
It's 7 a.m. and this is the Tobago Updates morning show coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough. It's Monday the 16th of May 2022 and we want to welcome you here to the Tobago Updates morning show coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough. As we continue to give God thanks for life, I am Julian Skeet.
And I am Maria Richardson George, and this is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. Good morning to you, Tobago. Good morning, Trinidad. Those of you in the Caribbean and those of you viewing us on the live, good morning, good morning, morning. It is a beautiful Monday morning. I'm really happy to be in your company. Good morning to you, Julian.
Good morning, Ria. And it's a bit of a sad start.
I tell you.
You know, to the week here in the Tobago space. We have increased in terms of our count. We understand that there would have been a murder that took place right here in Scarborough, and seeing the video the footage that is and the manner in which it took place, you know, it really begs the question. I would tell you my very first reaction as I saw it in communication and conversation was, wow, Tobago.
Yeah.
Wow, Tobago.
Yeah, and I don't know about, I know that I'm just a couple years in front of you, Julian, in terms of age, but I remember growing up in a Tobago where there were no murders for the year. I remember growing up in a Tobago where there were probably 1 or 2 murders for the year. Now that Tobago seems to have gone away, but it speaks also to the type of community, the type of environment that we're now living in, the culture of Tobago that has changed. And there was a point in time when when Tobagonians blamed the Trinidadians. Oh, it's Trinidadians coming here and committing these murders.
Yes.
And we've seen over the years that that is so not true, so not the case. And this is the footage that we have. This is the footage that we have here of just before the shooting.
Yes, viewers, and this is right opposite the Port Authority in Scarborough, and that's for the benefit. And you see it right there, several shots, and clearly very targeted in terms of the you know, the individual there, you know, having come on the inside, barely inside the space. And Ria, I you know, it makes me a bit uneasy because up to a few weeks ago, this is one of the spaces that I ventured to get lunch on a given day.
Lunch, you say? Okay.
And that's it, coming out of being in Scarborough. And I remember going to probably some of my regular spots or so, and they didn't have, and walking up, I saw the, what do you call it, the sign on the outside there. And you know, right on that outer space, somebody doing a lunch sale. I went in and I'm just thinking to myself, wow. This is crazy, and I've seen a number of events, whether it's after the football, after other activities and so that took place in the Tobago space. There's usually large gatherings in that space, similar to those other areas, because you know there are not many within Scarborough. So it really begs the question, wow, this is a very uncomfortable kind of feeling in the middle of Scarborough, right in within our capital, for something like this to happen. And we're really trusting that this is a situation that the police will very much be able to be on top of, in terms of really getting to the bottom of it. And it ties into what has been some challenging times, even quite recently as well. We also see the attack which took place on Lambo Credit Union.
Quite recently,
again, you know, another entity within the Tobago space. Really a different kind of time that we are operating in. And it calls for a greater level of consciousness, both on the part of institutions as well as individuals within our community.
Most definitely, most definitely. And, you know, it's just very sad. It's just very sad. So we extend condolences this morning to the Bovell family. This is on the passing or the shooting, the murdering of Nikosi Bovell. This was a very unfortunate situation. And, you know, the person is saying, the police probably need to take a look at all the persons who were inside. You know, viewing from the footage, all the persons who were inside, because some behaviors look a little bit sketchy.
Yes.
You know, a little bit more sketchy than others.
Yeah, most definitely. And just giving a quick shout out here, we see on the live with us this morning, Marilyn Spence, Joe Feel, I'm watching, yes, and thank you so much for the continued love and support. Donna Walcott, I'm also seeing in the mix here, Lisa Walcott. Someone says, in your background, Mount St. George. I suspect. I wonder who would give a comment like that. Yes, folks. It's Assemblyman Megan Morrison, sister of the soil indeed, and representative for the area. So she should be able to make out every possible area.
She knows that.
Within Dora Lyons, Auntie Dora.
And Auntie Esther Holdup is watching from New York. Yes, good morning.
Morning. Ria Orr, Ijoma on the live, Kinder Campbell, Sergeant, Ayana Ramsey, and each and every one of you joining us on the live this morning. Asha Phillips Kennedy, we want to say morning. Hey, I'm seeing one of our loyal viewers as well, Siobhan Stewart Allen, and I'm also getting messages out there. Yes, Lisa James, thank you so much, each and every one of you, for tuning in. Viewers, at this point, we head on over to News in 90 Seconds with Denicia.
Thank you, Julian. Here's your news in 90 seconds. Tobago-born zest artist Faridan was gunned down in Scarborough last night. Faridan, whose real name is Nikosi Bovell, was lambing at Dutch Fort restaurant and bar on Milford Road when tragedy struck. At 8:53 p.m., two gunmen entered the bar with handguns and opened fire on Bovell, killing him instantly. The men quickly fled the scene. The entire incident was captured on CCTV footage within the bar. Police were immediately called to the scene and locked down the area as they conducted their investigations. This brings the murder toll in Tobago to 3 so far for the year. In other news, the Tobago House of Assembly is expected to receive $60 million more as the government adjusts its budget upwards in the mid-year review today. Today, Minister of Finance Colum Imbert will take a bill to Parliament which seeks to increase the national budget for fiscal 2022 by $3 billion. In October 2021, a total of $52.429 billion was approved for fiscal 2022. If approved, the new budget arrangement will be worth $55.429 billion. As part of that increase, the THA will receive an additional $60 million. Meanwhile, police are trying to determine if the mother of 2-year-old Kamani Francis should be charged with negligence. Kamani wandered away from his teacher village Point 14 last Monday and was found dead in a river the next day. An autopsy confirmed he died by drowning. Kamani's mother was only aware of her son's disappearance when police showed up at her door. Investigations into whether or not the mother should face charges are being handled by the Child Protection Unit of the police. That was the news in 90 seconds. Back to you, Julian.
Thank you there, Denisha, giving us the updates as to what's happening in the Tobago space. And broader than that as well, continuing to connect with each and every one of you to keep you connected out there within Trinidad and Tobago, within the region and the world at large. We continue to express our thanks. Ria, did you get a chance on this weekend, Ria, to experience bitter cassava?
I did. I certainly did on Saturday evening, and I tell you, it was phenomenal. The acting was superb, I tell you. Jared Primer and team, congratulations to you. And for those of you viewing us in Trinidad, Bitter Cassava is coming on tour to Trinidad, and I'm saying to you here, do not miss it. Do not miss it. There was a little bit of everything in Bitter Cassava. I was sharing with one of my colleagues this morning, on the way down. I said there was a particular scene. There was some younger, and it's a family. Was it a family type production?
I would say, but not as they indicate, not advised for younger ones.
Younger audiences, yeah.
Yes.
Because some of the content is really, really matured for matured,
correct,
for matured persons. And there were two young guys just off to the right of where we were sitting, and they weren't sure at one particular point. Should I look? Should I not look? Should I block my eyes? What should I do? Yes, they seemed confused, but it was excellent performance.
Excellent. And Andrea, I had that experience having gone to the first rounds, and that's why I said to you, Ria, you cannot miss this. And I'm very impressed with the work that we see coming out there in terms of TPAC. By extension, that's Elvis Rajman, CEO, the entire team, Rishon, Jared, the entire team out there that would have worked on this production. My good friend Akin Labi in the mix.
He never fails.
Never fails at all. And I really want to commend the entire team, by extension, the secretary, assistant secretary for the division, and the Tobago House of Assembly, really making an excellent connection there. Ria and I also had some greetings coming out, and this morning I said to him, don't worry, man. We got you covered. Where I spent part of the weekend in Roxborough, up on your end, enjoying the space out there. You could be assured. But I spent some family time up on that end.
I like how he threw in the family time.
And this morning, I want to shout out particular shout outs to Curtis Daniel and the entire team up there, Vanya, Daishon, and so on. Yummy Waves Ice Cream. In Argyle. Very nice. Ria, I enjoyed the time out there, specifically because of the fact that when you got to the respective spaces, it's good to see on the eastern side of the island. I had the chance to enjoy two areas. Yummy Waves was one, and then when I got to Renaissance, Rings on Wings. And these persons view Tobago Updates morning show regularly. So I want to shout out there, Curtis, Daniel, and the entire team up there, Yummy Waves Ice Cream in Argyle, and also Rings and Wings. And I had to make sure I get it right. Rings and Wings and the entire team. Ria, let me just say there's nothing like homegrown chicken. When I can still receive a breast piece of chicken that is larger than the size of my hand, you know that I'm a happy man. You know that I am a happy man in Roxborough.
That's right. Clearly you are a breast man, yes.
Continue, certainly, and I make no apologies for that. And I continue to make the point, oh, so many places you go to now.
Chicken. I meant chicken. I heard these guys.
So many places you go to now and you only hear leg and thigh. And if you're like me, a lover of breast meat, the breast chicken, most certainly Ria. I was impressed with that, and they indicated the produce that they utilize also comes from local stock right in the east in terms of purchasing their chicken and so on. So it's really a plus, really a plus. You see, for that reason, Ria, I continue to love the beautiful countryside.
That's right.
Each and every time.
You can't get better than that. You can't get better than that.
And this morning we head on over to birthdays. Don't worry, folks. Many of you out there, I know the struggle. We go and we only hear about leg and thigh, and we are lovers of the breast meat as well. All right, that's fine, folks. I understand. Head to Roxborough, man. But we gotta have them on. We probably gotta have them on in the mix.
Definitely. Or probably we go to them. We can go to them.
Yes, because Curtis said to me, hey, we are from right up here, you know.
That's
We are
right
up the road. All right, so we want to say morning shout-outs to each and every one of you, and thank you so much for the continued love and support. And we're running on into birthdays this morning before we get into our major interview lineup.
This darling of a lady, this is Olive Grant celebrating her birthday. I think there might be some relation, I'm not sure. But she hails from the Richardson side of things. So happy birthday going out to you this morning. And I see her daughter Gail peeping out on the side there. But happy birthday going out to you this morning, Auntie Olive Grant. Yes, and then we're
sending birthday shout-outs to Downey Marcel. Downey Marcel continuing, and he's within the entertainment industry, ventured into the politics as well, but certainly continuing to make his contribution here in the Tobago space. Downey Marcel, wishing you a happy birthday.
Love going out to you this morning.
We see Nikisha Mayhew Dennis.
That's right.
This is the wife of our former chief secretary, and we want to wish you a happy birthday, Nikisha Mayhew Dennis.
Beautiful lady indeed. Happy birthday going out to you. And here we have this lovely lady who hails from East Tobago. This is Thelma Hamilton Jarvis, who celebrated her birthday over the weekend. She turned 88 years, and that's her granddaughter there, Alana Hamilton Williams, I think it is. Yeah, Alana, got your name right. So that's her granddaughter there along with her. But certainly this lady has been, just doing it very well. I tell you, attaining the age of 88. So happy birthday going out to you, my dear.
All right, and birthday shout-outs again. I'm seeing my very good friend out there in the mix, Neelan Macmillan, and birthday shout-outs coming from Mom, Janice Macmillan, and the entire family and the entire team here. Neelan Macmillan wishing you a happy birthday. All right, and we also have in the lineup, hey, family connections continuing here. We have Maurice Alexander. Birthday shout-outs going out to Maurice Alexander. We trust that you have an enjoyable one. And Maurice tunes in from Trinidad in terms of following Tobago Updates, the morning show, and keeping connected. So birthday shout-outs to you, Maurice Alexander.
Happy birthday.
And this morning also sending a birthday shout-out, our family again in the connection there. My cousin Akil O'Connor. All right, out there in Maraval, and this is one of in the teaching fraternity, loves as a teacher. I think it is naturally part of his passion, and we want to wish you a happy birthday out there, Akil. We trust that you have an enjoyable day, and I'm almost certain he's probably at school.
Hopefully by now. And this is my good friend, my sister friend. This is Jonna Grant Moore, who celebrated her birthday over the weekend. Happy birthday going out to you, Donna. Lots of love from the entire Open Bible family. And a special one this morning for coming to you from Oswald George.
All right, and this one here is an anniversary greeting, and this is the 6-year anniversary greeting going out to Ansel Dennis and Nikisha Mayhew Dennis, wishing you a happy anniversary, coming from the Tobago Updates family, and God's continued blessings. All right, so Ria, the lineup there extensive indeed. Ria, who do we have on the rundown this morning? Or before I even go to the rundown, Ria, and I see some viewers, giving this signal here. I like the definition by Nita Peters, earth colors. Yes, these earth colors this morning, shirt and blazer, courtesy Checkpoint, and that's Checkpoint located at Upper Main Street in Scarborough. Remember to Checkpoint at 639-5148. Ria, at first when I saw it, I thought it was silver, and then I see a combination of gold.
There's bronze, there's gold,
and then they indicated depending on the angle you turn.
Yeah, sort of iridescent.
Correct. So you get the variation in terms of the colors this morning, courtesy Checkpoint. Ria, who do we have coming in the rundown this morning?
Well, the only guest this morning
It's a big one. It's a big one.
Definitely when you're chilling with the big boys, right? But this morning we definitely chilling with the big boys. So coming up on the program this morning, we will be chatting with Chief Secretary for the Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Fali Chavez Augustine. He's going to be on the program with us this morning, focusing on several issues. So you don't want to miss this interview.
I see where Chavez became popular, that part of the name.
Yes.
Coming out of the season. But we'll focus on the interview this morning with the several issues to treat with in getting some responses and clarity. Ria, it's almost safe to say the honeymoon period might definitely be over for now in terms of going into some of the focal points, and we look forward to the interview coming up with Chief Secretary Fali Chavez Augustine. And this is your opportunity, folks. Thank you for each and every one of you joining us to share the live, share the live, share the live.
I just want a microphone. Morning. I just want a microphone. Morning. Take the mask off
Services
your
Company
face.
is the most advanced security service in Tobago. Ask about our cash and transit service. It's safe, risk-free, reliable, and timely. We provide safe banking delivery for all business types and sizes with highly trained staff, 24/7 monitoring, coordinated emergency response, and a well-maintained fleet of armored vehicles. Contact us at 660-7723 or visit our website at www.mi4securitytt.com to sign up today.
Tobago Glass Supplies has been a leading name for over 37 years in the glass and aluminum market in Tobago. We provide an extensive range of high-quality, innovative aluminum and glass products for commercial and residential use. Competitive prices with superior and professional services by committed employees who are guided by rigid quality standards. Tobago Glass Supplies specializes in the manufacture and installation of glass and aluminum products that are essential to today's homeowners and the business environment. We are engaged in marketing, sales, and installation of a variety of products. These ranges from windows and doors to necessities such as mirrors for homes and vehicles, designed and manufactured in-house or imported.
Tobago in May. Prices are sweet like mango at Thorns Place. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp. Call now 745-7306 for our May special starting at 200 TT at Thorns Place. Prices are sweet like mango.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning again, viewers, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show. We're chatting this morning with Chief Secretary Fali Chavez Augustine. He's our lone guest on the program today, and we're talking about several issues taking place within the Tobago space. Good morning and welcome to you. It's good to have you with us.
Good morning. We are glad to join you this morning. Good morning, Tobago.
Now, I really don't it's not my intention to spoil your morning or to spoil the morning of our viewers. We want to start this morning with the most recent incident taking place within the Tobago space, that being the murder of Nkosi Bovell, right here in Scarborough overnight. We want to get your thoughts on that as it relates to crime. And just last week, within the last 2 weeks, we saw the robbery at one of our local credit unions here in Tobago as well. So let's get your thoughts.
Well, I was actually up sometime this morning when I saw the news pop up that, you know, we had a murder at a popular bar right around the corner from here at Sanctus Hill Junction. And, you know, I pray God that Mr. Bovell's family is treating with the matter well. And then I saw a video, what seemed to be several gunshots placed on this young man that is just sitting at a bar. And this comes on the heel of what seemed like an increase in robberies, because it wasn't just at one credit union, but several were targeted over the last couple of weeks. On Friday, between 1 and 4:30 thereabout, I actually had a Tobago security meeting, our version of the Tobago Security Council. I had ACP Nurse, I had Mr. Vance, head of Coast Guard Tobago, and he also represented the Defense Force. I had head of TEMA, Mr. Stewart. I had the head of Port Security, Airport Authority, prisons. In fact, all the divisional heads were at that meeting. And we spent quite a long time strategizing and looking at where we are going in terms of crime on the island. And every murder in Tobago is one far too much for us, because that's not the Tobago we know. Every murder is shocking and alarming to us, and I don't ever want us to become desensitized or get to the place where we are desensitized to murders, and it's something that we have to treat with rather quickly. Crime is partly economics. Crime is mostly a social issue that we have to treat with, and we have to make a concerted effort to target our young men, especially. When we look at the spate of robberies, we saw some patterns. We saw the targeting of credit unions. We saw the targeting of a singular security company. We saw the targeting of their firearms, as in stealing their firearms, more than stealing money. And so that in itself presents a challenge. ACP Nurse assured me and assured the team that they're well on the way to solving 4 of those robberies, as in confident that 4 is already solved, which means that they have in line, in sight, those that are guilty or culpable of those criminal acts. But more than that, we have to be preemptive in terms of how we treat with crime and criminality. And it really starts with how we raise our children. And this morning I want to make a special plug for our boy children, because if you look at the statistics, it's clear that our males, our boys, are targeted more than any other. And so we have to double down on how we treat with our young men and ensuring that they turn out to be worthwhile citizens and good citizens of this island.
Most definitely, most definitely, and I think this is cause for discussion, and I know things will come.
And we have to pull into play a lot of our other social institutions. And it can't just be what the THA is doing about crime. We have to pull into play
what we're all doing.
What we're all doing. We have to pull into play our churches, our youth clubs, our sports clubs. And more than that, we have to come up with a strategy to treat with those young men that are unattached, as I like to call them. The young people who are unattached. Those who don't participate in any club, any church, because sometimes we often preach to the choir, who are always there and part of the social institution. We have to target those who just come out and lime on the block and take our programs to them and sit and talk with them and find ways to get them on the straight and narrow.
All right. So let's shift gears a little bit here, and we want to talk about some of the other issues that are taking place within the Tobago space. There have been accusations about gross nepotism within the THA with regards to boards, local boards, and employment. There was a time just recently when you would have said that persons were not going to be fired. Then we heard about the restructuring of boards, restructuring of divisions, and persons were being sent home. Is this a case of, because you're not, and I want you saying here this morning,
sure,
because you're not affiliated with a particular party, that you would be sent home? Because this is in the mind, this is the conversation on the ground in Tobago. Because when I vote for them, they know me and vote for them, and they fire me, and they fire my brother, and they fire my... So let's hear from you this morning.
You know, let me start responding by looking at an analogy. I grew up in the country. I am a proud country boy.
That's right, space
and
side.
you know, sometimes I'm home and I'm in my bedroom, and I will hear a raucous with the yard fowls outside, and I will think, well, maybe something is wrong. But the truth is, sometimes it's just a mango that dropped or a coconut that dropped. Nothing injurious to the yard fowls. And I've grown to understand that the cackling of yard fowls isn't really because there is something injurious happening. It's just because noises are being made. And that's what they're there to do, make noises. And that's okay and that's fine. And let me be clear, no one was sent home just because they are of another political party or political affiliation. And you spoke about two different things. Boards are separate from divisions. Boards are to be filled by people who can carry out the agenda of the executive. Boards are an extension of the executive council. So naturally, those who will go on boards have to be those who are willing to align themselves with the mandate of the executive.
Are you
naturally
saying
that's boards? That's
okay,
how boards are set up. So if you think about it, if, for example, I have a board, tourism, TTAL, the board that runs the tourism agency must represent the secretary and the executive and what the executive stands for.
Right.
And I treat the board aspect first. And the reason why the accusation of nepotism on the boards is hilarious is because, on the other hand, I have individuals who I know are diehard and strong supporters of the PDP who are saying, but Farley only had too much of PNM people on the boards. And yes, I have knowingly signed off on some boards with some individuals that I know to be PNM.
And why, just for public information, why was that?
Because I felt that that individual had something to offer,
right,
and I feel that individual can be professional regardless
of
the political affiliation.
Right.
Because the thing is, boards require you to be professional. It requires you to carry out the mandate that the executive has given and that the executive will give. Because when we actively campaign that these are things we wish to do and to achieve, and so that now becomes government policy. The PDP mandate now becomes government policy, the things that we are going to hope to achieve. And therefore, boards are really supposed to be filled by people who we have confidence can carry that out and will not try to do anything to derail that.
Right.
But that's boards on one hand. As it relates to divisions and units in the THA, several units in the THA require some restructuring in order for there to be efficiency in the system. And one was restructured under my division, one was restructured under the division of infrastructure, and now some restructuring is happening across at CPEP, which is under the division of community development, youth development, and sport. Let me start at infrastructure. At infrastructure, we had a monitoring and evaluation unit. This unit was meant to evaluate the work of the engineers in the works department, as we call it. But not one single member of that unit was an engineer themselves. Not one single member of that unit had the capacity to really monitor and evaluate
so it begs the question.
So it begs the question, how in the first place...
How are these boards?
That wasn't a board, that's a unit that was set up under the division.
How are these units, well, how are these boards/units being set up? What is the criteria for,
right. And the truth is, units like that one was established by the political directorate of the day. We decided we want to give some people a job. We set up this unit, we pull them in on the unit, but there was no real check and balances in terms of ensuring that people qualify for the role and function for which you give them. And so by the time we roll in and we look at it, the unit is really not as effective. We have units that chief administrator have been begging for reports for a long while. And then we look at the community partnership or the liaison unit under the office of the chief sec. When I came into office, I noted that sometime in 2016, former chief Ray Sandy gave instruction. Upon the instruction he received from then Chief Secretary Mr. London to close down the unit. So Mr. London, who started that unit, gave instruction that the executive was no longer desirous of keeping that unit in place.
Right.
And then Chief Mr. Sandy gave instruction for the unit to be closed and no one to be given new contracts.
Right.
Election came in 2017. Then Chief Secretary Charles decided to extend the unit by a few months. Those few months turned into a few years. But by the time I came into office, I'm seeing where former chief Koroma, she's writing them in 2021 and 2020, begging for reports, asking what have you done, asking for records of activities and performance, and can't get it. Eventually she got a report. When you look at the report that she was given, the report basically said that, hey, our workers were out with the candidates campaigning in the election of January 2021. And then you look at the overall productivity and you ask yourself, is this something a unit the THA should be spending money on? And so the executive has decided, look, let us restructure this liaison program that we had. And instead of it being a program under the office of the Chief Secretary, let's ask the House Committee of the Assembly to actually sit and expand the amount of funds available to electoral district offices. So area reps themselves, all area reps themselves, will hire their own liaison officers, and that will be the channel through which issues from the community comes to the THA, and that really and truly should be the channel through which issues come to the Tobago House of Assembly. And then we go to CPEP, which is the most recent,
right, which we're coming to,
for which I think there was some unnecessary bacchanal over. In CPEP,
unnecessary use.
Yes, because let's look at it in CPEP, and you see, sometimes we are at fault for not speaking the whole truth and for not sharing information liberally. In CPEP, we have a situation where the org chart, the organizational flow of CPEP, is top heavy, meaning that we have significantly more managers than the program needs. So you have a lot of duplication, you have a lot of people who don't have sufficient work to do, right, at the top. Because we're not troubling or interfering at all with the CPEP workers, with those that work.
There was some controversy over that.
CPEP workers are not being interfered with. In fact, we are proposing to find ways to increase the salary for the CPEP workers, increase the benefits for the CPEP workers themselves, and ensure that their benefits are more in line with that of a living wage for 2022.
Right.
But that aside, so we look at the top. We could have decided, look, last come, first out. So we could have decided all of those that were hurriedly hired late last year. And you know what was happening late last year?
Yes,
elections.
Yes.
All those were hired late last year, or between the first election and the second election last year, we will just send them home.
Right.
Last in, first out. That's a principle most companies use. We said no. We said, look, we need to do this restructuring so it's more efficient, because we're talking about a CPEP that we want to become more productive, a CPEP that will generate income, a CPEP where we will put more people into skills training and education, a strong skills training component, because we campaigned on there being a parallel education system and ensuring that our people are fit for life. Instead, we said, look, we will design the org chart for maximum functionality and maximum productivity. Allow everybody at the top to reapply. After they have reapplied, some will be successful. Those that are not successful, we will then redeploy those that are not successful into vacancies that exist across the system. So yes, in the initial phase, it will appear as if it's a firing, because you have a job with CPEP and now you have to reapply, and you're not sure if you will be one of those who will turn out to be the best fit for the program. But we are also giving the assurance that if you don't turn out to be the best fit for the CPEP program, then we will place you where there are existing vacancies in the system, so you don't necessarily lose an income. And so that's how we are going to treat with the restructuring across at CPEP. And that's why I said some of the bacchanal might be unnecessary, in that, yes, you may not be at CPEP, you may not end up being a CPEP worker or a CPEP manager in that regard, but we more or less giving you a guarantee that we will fit you within the THA system, because there exist some vacancies within the system that, especially within that said division of community development, youth development and sport, that will be able to align you to.
All right, I want to throw in a question here coming in from one of our viewers on the live. And this is from Rhonda Phillips, who says, how come Tobagonians are not being informed of these appointments? Is it a family affair happening that Tobagonians are not to be aware of? What is this new thing about PDP board appointments being shrouded in secrecy? They are no longer about transparency but secrecy. Zia Hackett, who loves pictures and spotlight, kept her new TITL board a secret. No installation ceremony, no press release. Are you all hiding those board appointments from PDP grassroots supporters? In Tobago, all will be revealed. Your thoughts?
Oh no, actually we have been the most transparent about boards. In fact, this is the first time in the history of the THA we are hearing so much about boards and seeing who are on boards. And all boards will be released. I can tell you, under the Division of Education, there are, 3 boards. The TITL board, there should be the Scholarship and Training Awards Committee, and there is a third board. And so what will happen is that Education will release all the names. I think there was sign-off on the TITL board and awaiting there are 2 other boards, so that they can release all the names to the boards. But there is no need for an installation ceremony. What happens is that when you appoint a board, you give instruments of appointment. Once you have instruments of appointment, it means that those you have elected to be on the boards have agreed to be on the boards, and then you release all the names. So they will release all the names for their boards. There is no secret. And I don't know this thing about grassroots. The people who are on boards, a lot of them are part of the PDP family and PDP support base, because I did explain that boards are to carry out the function of the executive. Boards are to represent the executive. Therefore, boards are expected to be loyal to the executive in the carrying out of their function. So naturally, those that fall in these boards, by a significant majority, will be PDP supporters of some hue, or form. That is expected, and that is part of the natural run of boards. And that's not unique to THA. That's not even unique to Trinidad and Tobago, because think about it this way: if the board is more or less part of the executive, think of the executive as your secretaries and so on. Who would be part of the executive? Wouldn't it be those who are part of the party, those who share the same vision as the party? And therefore, that question really, to be polite, that question is a nonsensical one.
All right, question here. Has the TITL board been appointed already? And who are some of the members?
The TITL board, let me see if I have it here. The TITL board, there's approval on TITL board, and on that board we have hold on, I'm looking for it.
Yes, we've got the use of technology this morning.
Yes.
We've got the use of technology this morning, and he's pulling it up even as we speak. And one of the other questions coming in is the question of what division would be next? Which division would be next for restructuring? So you can respond to that after.
Well, right. So in terms of TITL board, The TITL board has Mr. Otis Noel as chairman, and if Ms. Rhonda Phillips will want to know, Mr. Noel is a PDP grassroots supporter. In fact, he was campaign manager for Ms. Hackett, so you can't get more grassroots than that. The deputy chairman is Mr. Hewlett Waldron. We also have as other members of the board, Ms. Shara Carrington James, Miss Curlan London, and I will let you know Miss Curlan London, and this is the board in charge of 211, by the way. Miss London is the one that designed and built the PDP website, the only political party in this space to have a website for that matter. Mr. Daniel Lyons, Ms. Tinil Jack, Mr. Marcus Woods, Mr. Mentor Batiste, who is a teacher. And so we have a mixture of some strong grassroots PDP activists with some professionals in the space. So we pull some teachers. Mr. Marcus Woods is an IT specialist, so he may not be classified as grassroots, but you know, you want some of the experts in there as well. And the secretary to the board is Ms. Alia Hola. So there are no secrets about boards whatsoever.
All right. Thank you so much. And very quickly here,
Yeah, sure.
what is the next division to be restructured?
No, all divisions are going through this exercise. All divisions are looking at how we can be more efficient. All divisions are looking at their below and looking at what works from what does not work. Let me tell you, we ran a campaign and Tobagonians agreed that a significant portion of our bailout as a THA does not work. You're not efficient. You're not getting deliverables on the ground. You're not seeing the results for the things that we desire. And that is something Tobagonians believing wholeheartedly. And so if that is the case, it means that we have to look inwardly and look at how we can be more efficient, how we can work things much more efficiently, much more productively, how we can get the deliverables to the people on time. And that's a serious bugbear for me, the ability or inability to get to the people on time the things that we say we will get to them. And what I could tell you, one of the policy decisions, and let me say now that we have discussed and we are firm on, is the issue of retirees returning to the system. Now there was, or rather there is an executive council minute, long before I got here, that says that once you have passed the retirement age, you should only be employed with the THA in consultancy, as advisor, and it should be for a temporary period or a short period.
Right.
It should not be for an extensive period. That policy exists before we got here. So PDP not making up this policy. That policy we met that policy here. But we met plenty of people in this space who have long retired, who have been working in this system 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, post-retirement, and still working. And one of the things we have made clear, and I've been very firm on that in my own divisions, all of these individuals, when their contract comes to an end, I am not taking it to executive council to renew those contracts, period. Because we have a lot of young professionals in the space who are at home who want an opportunity and a chance. And as an island, we have to decide whether we want an exchange or a change. And I'm not going to bring an exchange. I'm going to bring a change. And I know that some of the change elements that are required will mean some bitter medicine for some. But when you get a nasty flu, you take the Buckleys not because it tastes good, but because it works. And so if it is, we have to take a dose of Buckleys to ensure that we have a system that works, then so be it. We will administer the dose of Buckleys. And that's another one that I'm going to put it out there. So if you see somebody who have long past retirement that the THA had on contract for a number of years, and all of a sudden their contract is not being renewed. It's not because we hate them. It's not because those individuals are even P&M, but it's because there is a policy that exists within the THA that we met here that said that those who pass retirement must only be there as advisors or consultants, but for a limited period of time. Yes. And they must have a skill set that they must share with others. And that's something that we have to be firm about. Okay. And let me say this quickly. I have had relatives, close relatives, affected by the restructuring.
So it was not personal?
In fact, a first cousin, not even second cousin, third cousin, or pumpkin vine, a first cousin of mine was part of that unit under my division in community partnership. A first cousin who walked me wedding in all the rain and catch cold in all the rain. That was part of that unit. But guess what? If restructuring has to happen, it has no friend, it has no family, it has no PDP, it has no PNM. It just has to happen.
All right. Well, we've got lots more coming up on the program, viewers, so stay tuned. Julian is going to be on set with Chief Augustine just after the break. So we encourage you again, share the live, share the live, share the live.
Are you looking for that all-in-one shopping experience? Then look no more. Visit Lamb's Best Mart for your grocery items, fruits and vegetables, drinks, home items, stationery, gift items, hampers, shopping gift cards, toiletries, small hardware items, and much more. We provide order and pickup service, even delivery to your door. We are your friendly community supermarket. Check us out today at Lamb's Best Mart, located at 22 Daniel Trace, Carnby, or visit us on social media at Lamb's Best Mart. Cafe, the buffet restaurant that specializes in all your tasty local dishes for breakfast and for lunch. Breakfast includes coconut bake and sada roti served with chokers, bull joil and sausages in tomato sauce. Not forgetting beef and cheese pies, shepherd's pie, macaroni pie and rice in various styles. Meat served in a variety of flavors, garden salads and pasta salads. All this accompanied by fruit juices, coconut water, your choice of a great combination to appease your taste buds. So call us today to order, as we are here to accommodate your busy schedules or if you are having a cooking day off.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning. Good morning, morning, good morning.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough. It is 7:49 a.m. and this morning we are chatting with Chief Secretary, the Honorable Farley Chavez Augustine, as we continue the conversation. Morning to you, Chief.
Yes.
As we continue the conversation this morning, and I'm following on from where Ria would have gone, you listed out persons appointed to the 211 TITL board and named, of course, the relative association with the PDP. Just to be clear, is that the specific reason
for the
appointments?
No, it's more than that. You have to have some qualifications to bring to the table. Because let me be very clear. You could be the biggest of PDP. You could be the first person in the polling station to vote PDP. You could ring bell behind PDP. You could be on the boat going to Trinidad to PDP launch in Trinidad. That does not qualify you to be on the board. What qualifies you must be the level of expertise you bring to the board. So, for example, Mr. Noel, whose name I call, is a statistician by profession and understands that. Mr. Waldron, who I call, has been an IT expert for quite a number of years, and so he can bring that level of experience, and he's the deputy chair. And let me just say that I call the name of that board that the Executive Council approved. And guess what? You know, the members of that board have not been informed. So one of the reasons why, Ms. Phillip, why they were not published is because that board has not even received their instrument. Some of the members have not even been called to ask if if they can serve. So there is a possibility that by the time the board is actually installed, that some of those individuals may have either said, no, I don't have the time, no, I can't serve, I can't manage this and so on. Because people sometimes turn down the appointments for varying reasons. So just to be clear, that board has not even been duly appointed as yet. And that's the reason why it's not made public. So, but there is no secrecy in terms of the boards. In fact, unlike in the past, we have been putting them all out there. So that some people say, look, it had too much of PNM on the board, you don't have enough grassroots on the board. So that some people will say, I ain't like this board. So some people will say, that's Trevor brother, take him off. Or that's Farley cousin, take him off. Or that's Farley friend, take him off. We're putting the boards out there for the criticism, for people to have an opinion. And that's fine. But the people who serve on these boards, who are placed on these boards, must come with specific competencies that we can use for the functioning of the company or the entity over which that board must preside.
All right. And the final area on that matter, well, of course, folks, we thank for here. This is the Tobago Updates morning show, and you got an exclusive exclusive into the announcement.
So if you hear your name and nobody ever tell you anything, it's because the division was not there yet at that place. But those names were pre-approved by the executive. The secretary will now call and find out if those individuals are willing to serve on that board. Once the answer is yes, then instruments can be given and a release given about the names.
Going from there, the other area, the secretary with responsibility for tourism would have made some commitments. As you know, persons are very uneasy in relation to Carnival 2022 carded for October. Specific announcements were made as at last week.
With
the expectation
committee.
that the committee would be identified, because many stakeholders are saying, you know, they want to get running with things and want to know where the level of engagement is. How soon can persons look forward to that?
The secretary will actually be announcing the names today for that committee. And I think the media asked me about it on Friday. And if my memory serves me right, the core of the committee is, I think, 7 or 9 members. And we have asked to sit at the table with those core members, a rep from Mass, PAN, and Calypso. And we have also asked the chair of the TTL board to sit there so that the conversation is well-rounded and that we will always have the 3 major elements of Carnival present in the conversations and the planning. And 2, we have our main tourism agency being there to ensure that that is in sight, because October really represents the start of that peak season for us in terms of tourism, and we don't want to lose sight of that potential. And I could tell you discussions are advanced to the point where we're having conversations about having cruise ships here for that weekend, at least 2 here, so we could get international visitors present here. All of those moves are being made as well in ensuring that we have a successful event. But the committee will take up from where the division has been planning and run with the rest of it. Quite a lot of engagement, I might add though. Quite a lot of engagement. Up to last night, a promoter was talking to me about it. People having events, people planning their costumes. A lot of trainees want to come, trainee bands want to come, trainee promoters want to come and hold fetes and so on. And one of the things I noticed that Carnival is never 2 or 3 day period. And so one could see that month of October being quite a bumper month in terms of a lot of activities in the lead up to the climax on that last weekend in the month of October. And again, people like me who are not Carnival babies, we have an opportunity to...
A whole other industry.
A whole other industry, and we make fun of it. But I'm adamant that Carnival cannot just be about those who into the jump up. There is an industry for camping. There is an industry where large groups want to come and spend time in Tobago, either outdoors in tents or at guest houses and at hotels, and having that kind of revival experience, that spiritual experience. And so there's an opportunity for that. And given that the Carnival will happen on a weekend, it makes it easy and doable for churches to plan the activities, because there's no loss in terms of employment time, because the peak is between Saturday and Sunday, Friday to Sunday. And so that's a good period as well for churches to plan their camps. I'm hoping churches are planning their camps. I plan to engage my young people in my church district so that we could plan and organize ourselves as well.
So I know you mentioned the secretary will be announcing today, but could you at least give us some insights into the chairman?
I've already given. No, listen, I want the secretary to be able to take ownership of this thing and to run with this thing. As chief secretary, it's not my job to micromanage and to necessarily be secretary of all divisions. I am secretary of all secretaries, but I'm not secretary of all divisions. And I will want to respect the line secretary and have her lead the way in terms of making that announcement later today.
All right. As we speak to Carnival, one of the other areas that we want to touch into would be the issue of the air bridge and the port authority in relation to access. Now, one would wonder, we are still at a point where there is still insufficient flights. And by insufficient flights, we make the comparison with what existed before COVID and what we have seen as a gradual return or a gradual increase, but still far from, or should I say, not exactly what we have enjoyed previously or more than that. What efforts have been made in that regard, specific to Tobagonians that continue to face the challenge in terms of travel between Trinidad and Tobago, which for many Tobagonians is mandatory and not necessarily just vacation or just for leisure?
Well, the Port Authority is coming to meet with me for the second time, I believe sometime this week, on just that matter in terms of ensuring that the capacity is met. And you can see that we now have the VIP section of the boat open up and available to the public. In the past, that was closed off and not used. Over the Easter period, 7,000 additional seats were put on for the Easter period at our behest, and they were all filled. They were all filled and all used up. And more of that is coming, especially for peak periods, because naturally there are some periods that are peak and some periods where it will not be economical to increase the number of sailings. Additionally, one of the things that the Port Authority and myself will discuss when we meet, I think it's this week, I'm sure, when we meet again, is the issue of having a sailing from one of the other Caribbean territories, starting it off as a charter. And I spoke with the Minister of Works on this matter, starting it off as a charter in the first instance to see the economic viability of it, and with the intention of having it as a regular run, because the amount of fuel used from Scarborough, that will be used from Scarborough to, let's say, Grenada, is equivalent from Scarborough to Port of Spain. Most people don't recognize the geography of it and how close to Tobago Grenada is. And how far Port of Spain might be, because to get to Port of Spain, we have to go around the entire north coast of Trinidad to get to Port of Spain. So we're looking at that. In terms of Caribbean Airlines, they indicated that unlike pre-COVID times, to get back to the late flights, the Airports Authority, with respect to Tobago, because the Tobago airport is scheduled to close at 10 p.m., Trinidad is set up as a 24-hour system. But for Tobago, in order to get that additional flight, the Airport Authority is requiring that Caribbean Airlines pay the cost of keeping the airport in Tobago open for each hour beyond 10 p.m. That cost, according to the Airport Authority, and that was revealed to me on Friday, because as I indicated earlier, the head of the Airport Authority Tobago was there at our security meeting. And that cost is $500 US per hour. That $500 US per hour, when I did the calculation, worked out to be somewhere in the vicinity of $14,000 per month, because the airport, 14,000 TT per month. That's if I just do a rough calculation by 7. Because the airport previously opened till around 1:30 thereabout. So that's $14,000 per month. That results in about $4.7 million for a calendar year, for a 12-month period. And so I have started a conversation with the executive about us seeing whether we can pay that cost or whether we will designate some days in the week, especially on the weekends, for now, between Friday and Sunday, and also for holiday periods. And of course, at times when that KLM flight comes in in Trinidad, or key flights come into Trinidad, so we could get the connection happening, and potentially the THA covering that cost. And yes, $4.7 million for an entire year does not sound like a lot in terms of the operation of Caribbean Airlines. But we have to remember that Caribbean Airlines just did some restructuring as well. And so it's more than a cost factor. Now it will also be a question of the manpower factor. If the THA can cover that cost, will Caribbean Airlines have the manpower? And you know, which reminds me, you know, a lot of people in this space are quite hypocritical because Caribbean Airlines sent home they were the first out. They sent home a significant number of their workers. In fact, up to last week Friday, someone called me making a case for 2 of our Tobago pilots that are now unemployed because Caribbean Airlines sent them home. There are folks at TSTT receiving their letters nationally. CPEP contractors were asked to cut their staff by 2/3. We have not done that. And so it's really interesting that some who are making noise about restructuring and people being left off are cherry picking what sort of noise they should make. I wish they will also make such noise with the central government, of which their party is in charge, and state companies of which their party is in control of. But that aside, the Executive Council at the moment considering covering some of the cost for getting that those extended hours. Because again, I keep making the point, there are 2 reasons why we need Caribbean Airlines. One, there is a public transportation need because there is no bridge between Trinidad and Tobago, so we can't just jump in our vehicles and drive across. The PTSC can't drive a bus between Trinidad and Tobago, and therefore the ferry system and the airline system operates as public transportation. And the state does not make money from those ventures. The state loses money from those ventures. And it's because it's a public transportation need or a public transportation good. It's the same reason why it is still $8 for a bus ticket to go to Charlottesville. And now it's almost $20 out of pocket to pay a taxi for the same route. And that's because we see it as public transportation good. And so the executive is currently considering paying that cost because of the public transportation good and the need for Tobagonians to just get home after doing business in Trinidad. But also, at peak periods, on the weekends when we want people to come and fill our villas and guest houses and Airbnb and hotels and so on, people need to be able to get to the island. We can't be in the business of tourism, and it is so hard, so difficult to just get to this place. It has to be easier.
Chief, one of the areas that continues to come up, specific at that in these times, you would have had quite recently a major contractor in the Tobago space taking to social media and calling out your administration on the fact that promises were made to be fair, to be equal, notwithstanding party support, etc. What do you have to say on that matter? In fact, he went as far to specifically identify that he is being targeted in terms of monies owed, etc. If my information is correct, over approximately $1 billion in terms of the cost. How is the current administration responding to that?
Listen, we are being we are being fair. He is not the only contractor owed. In fact, ask all of the contractors. In fact, he could have made a case of us not being fair. If it is, he could look around the space and see this administrator paying some contractors and not paying others. He is not the only one. So we are, in fact, being fair in how we treat with the matter. And I'm happy you raised this question because I want to talk about THA's debt management, which is critical. Recently, I reminded Tobagonians that our debt is almost $1 billion, right? We could be there, but I'm not certain if we're there yet, but almost. In January, when I presented in the House the state of our economy, our debt was at $902 million. And I could give you quickly a breakdown of that debt. You see the good thing with smartphones, you have all the data at your fingertips. So based on that breakdown, Assembly Legislature is at $976,443 in debt. Office of the Chief Sec is at $25.9 million. Finance and the Economy is at $1.47 million. Food production is at $11.39 million. Tourism, culture and transportation is at $4.11. Education is at $1.25 million. Community development is at $1.86 million. Infrastructure, quarries and environment is at $399.999 million. Health is at $283.149 million. Settlements, $7.43 million. Sports and youth affairs is at $553,000. And of course, we have a bond financing at $164 million. So we are at $902 million and counting. This was as of January, right? And counting. Now, and I heard someone in this space say every country has debts. Well, that's true. But every country is not as reckless in how they rack up their debts. And we have to look at the whole picture. So we have these debts, and one contractor recently sent me a note with debt owed to him from as far back as 2018. And some being owed monies before 2018, long time ago. But we have these debts. But here's where bad matters were made worse. We got to an election period late last year, and the Executive Council decided we are going to hand out contracts to people, but we don't know where we're getting the money from to pay. Now, the standard mode of operation, and I want Tobagonians to understand this, before we engage anyone, it is a requirement for the Executive Council note to indicate where the monies will come from to pay for this service or to pay for this thing that you're asking the Executive Council to agree on. The Executive Council decided to allow $80+ million worth of contracts or in works to be done. In fact, it probably reached 100 because they kept extending on it. When we came into office and I look, there were no contracts issued for those works. Instead, commitment letters were issued by a junior officer. Now, legally, a junior officer cannot issue a commitment letter for tens of millions of dollars. In fact, even a regular administrator cannot. It's only the chief ad has that kind of spending limit. But the Executive Council note said that the administrator will issue these contracts. The administrator didn't issue the contracts. The administrator had a junior officer issue commitment letters. These commitment letters were issued without any scope, any detailed scope. And so I say, here, Julian, look at letter, go do this road, 13 million. Here we are, look at letter, go and build this retaining wall, 5 million, 10 million, these figures. And so you will hear me say and indicate that we brought in forensic auditors to treat with that matter specifically. Now, the contractors were asked to do these roads 100% out of pocket. So all of those works, no mobilization fees were paid. So the contractors were asked, come up with your finance 100% of the way, finance the project, and then we'll pay. What the contractors did not know is that the THA at the time did not identify a single avenue through which they would actually pay for the works. In fact, the Executive Council minute says the Secretary of Finance will find the money. No, I've been Secretary of Finance for 5 months, and I ain't find the money yet, right? And I asked for that. In fact, I requested a little over $200 million from the Minister of Finance at the midterm review. He gave us 60 million, right? Less than 4.03%.
So how much did you request?
Was 200 and something million. We got 60 million, less than 4.03% of the 3 billion additional monies he placed on the budget. And the law says we should get 4.03%, which would have taken us to a little over 100 million. But he gave us $60 million, right? Now, So we still have to pay for those works that were done in the lead up to election that were never financed. So that's a debt being owed. We had the $164 million bond financing. Those went through the system like a dose of salt. And if you take salts, how we run into the bathroom every minute, everything passing out, quick, quick, quick. That's how that $164 million was treated with, like a dose of salt. Went through the system quickly. So what people don't know, that bond financing is a long-term loan program. In 7 years' time, we have to find the people full $164 million to pay them. Now, I could decide now, as the Secretary of Finance and Economy, that is not my problem. 7 years from now, whoever is Secretary of Finance will deal with that. And even if I'll be alive 7 years from now. No, but 7 years from now, whoever is Secretary of Finance will deal with that. So I could kick the bucket down the road. Or I could be responsible and say, I need to find some money and develop a sinking fund immediately, so that when we get to that place, we have saved enough capital to be able to make that payment for that bond financing. And then on top of that, we have all the old bills still to pay. And so, for starters, let me make it clear, contractors won't be able to get all their monies immediately. They will get some. And I'm giving that commitment, they will get some, but they can't get all their monies immediately. But it is not that one single contractor is being sidelined over the others, and we're paying some contractors and not paying their companies. And that I will not do, and that I will not stand for. That will be unequal. I think where some people are having a problem is that in the past, they may have had a direct line to a chief sec or Secretary of Finance, and they could call the shots with a phone call. But they can't call the shots with a phone call with this chief secretary. That doesn't happen, because without fear or favor to anyone, one rule across the board for everybody. But I'm giving the commitment that there will be some payments made to the contractors. While that is happening, we have to also remember that for our capital development budget, which is what we have to pay off contractors, plus do new works, the total sum of that was $264 million for fiscal 2022. We can't use all of that to pay off contractors. If we do, then no new road will be paved, no retaining walls, no box drain. We don't have preparation for the hurricane season, which starts today. By the way, the rainy season actually officially starts today. The hurricane season will start a little later on, but the rainy season officially starts today based on the weather patterns we're having. We're looking at a much more aggressive season than in the past, so we have to also prepare for that. We know that there's some outstanding works in communities that need to get done. That also comes out of the capital development budget. So what we have to do is pay some of the bills and simultaneously do some of the capital development
Chief,
works.
as you speak to audit and calling the shots, we want to get a clear sense from you. Quite recently, we saw a situation arise in relation to the division with responsibility for food production and so on through Secretary Natisha Charles-Panton, and she has called on you in relation to an audit into where there might have been some apparent accusations coming out through social media and so on of some calling of the shots took place in order for certain people to get into the details. That came out via social media. How do you respond to that call and the concern raised?
Well, I have already spoken to the Chief Administrator about the matter, and that is something I take very seriously. And that matter is being investigated. I pray for the Secretary's sake that allegation is in fact not the truth. And if in fact some of that happened, I would like to know who did it and all the details. But I have also seen several things said on social media. For example, it was said I had a $5 million pool. Every day I look at the old pool that's there, is nowhere close to $5 million. It was said I had a $100,000 tub. I passed the $100,000 tub this morning, because in the same bathroom I took a bath this morning, and it was not even 20% of that $100,000 it claimed the tub was for. I have seen firsthand where things are just said on social media, and they are said by cowards. They are said by people with fake profiles. They are said by people who are nameless and faceless, and so they cannot face any kind of retribution before the court. And they say it, then they screenshot it and they share it around and hope it sticks like gospel. So I am also very mindful that we ought to take our news from credible source. And I taught 7 years, up to last year, I taught children Caribbean studies online for their exams. And one of the things we teach people is this thing called validity and reliability in research. And when you're talking validity and reliability, you have to look at the source. And if the source is neither valid nor reliable, then you have to question any and everything that comes from that source. So I wouldn't lose much sleep over a fake profile. But because it's there in the universe, in the internet verse, in the global space, I have asked for the matter to be investigated so that we can look into the truth or the falsehoods behind this matter. It's just a responsible thing to do.
A pertinent matter that to public servants, public officers within the Tobago space. Would the THA be addressing the issue of appointments in the Tobago space for young professionals who are qualified? That's one. Two, are there plans to assess the disparity in remuneration among technical staff holding the same levels of qualifications? So for example, your nurses in the protective services and so on. And then an area that you spoke to earlier when you took up office, the concern that lies where our administrators within the THA space, good, capable and competent administrators continue to be taken away because of the level at which, in terms of central government, that administrators here in the Tobago space fall. And when they get a higher appointment as deputy PS and PS, what has been the progress in those areas?
Well, I hope we plan to go to 9 o'clock, eh? Right? So I hope you plan to close the show, right? And I hope I'm not going to be billed. These are free. This is free for those in the space. We are paying for this.
The chief has just announced it.
Right. So I have already written to public administration, Ministry of Public Administration, and I raised it at that joint meeting we had with the Prime Minister and members of Cabinet. Making our administrators equivalent to a PS. That's the only solution. Recently, someone advised me that I should take it to the House as a bill to be sent down to Parliament. And send it down as a bill to Parliament, because I think is a real serious issue. One, our administrators are not just administrators, but our public servants are grossly underpaid for the work that they're doing. Now, I know the CPO has begun negotiations to move people from their 2013 salaries and bring them up to date. So that will help. Let me also tell you what will help. The Executive Council this week will be confirming a decision whereby once you are asked to act, and all public servants, I want to listen carefully, once you are asked to act in a position, whether or not your acting appointment and the letters come from Trinidad, once the chief either has asked you to act in a position, I am giving you the undertaking that after Wednesday this week, you will be remunerated and paid at the level of that acting, with or without whatever is needed from the Service Commission in Trinidad. What we did is that we got a legal opinion on the matter, and we are giving an instruction to all administrators subsequent to Exec Council on Wednesday that once someone is asked to act in a position, you must be paid the salary for that acting. I had a situation where the wife of a husband, and sometimes when wives come and complain, you have to listen, eh? As a young married man, I tell you that you have to listen when they complain.
Yes, Chief.
And a wife came and complained because her husband is working in infrastructure. He has been acting for so long, not being remunerated at the position of the acting. He's been paid at the substantive, which is a much lower position. He's been paid at that substantive. And she said, look, she said, Chief, we are struggling. We can't make ends meet in the household. And he's doing all of this work and not being paid for that work. I want to say to that housewife, rest assured, I hope I ain't putting her husband in trouble, but rest assured your husband coming home with some more income by this month end. There's another situation where a young public servant on this island, young talented public servant, she has been acted in an elevated position for a very long time, for years, acting the position. Boops, somebody from Trinidad come to Tobago on a confirmed position that is higher than her substantive, which is what we called Clark 1, and I think they have changed the names now, higher than her substantive, but lower than her acting position. Hear this. On an ordinary day, she is the person's supervisor. Her superior just went on vacation. You know what the division did? Put her junior, who has a higher substantive position, to act as the director of the unit, while she ordinarily acts as the supervisor for the individual. She now becomes the person that is subordinate to someone that she was a supervisor for a day ago. That happened in the Tobago space, and that could never ever be fair. It could never be fair to our public servants. And the truth is that I have been particularly hard on our public servants in terms of efficiency and getting things done. But let's be honest. You sit down there, you doing accounts, you looking around and you seeing all kind of people getting paid. You see contracted officers getting paid and getting the salary and so on. And now with the coming of PDP, you see more and more of them getting their gratuities on time. You see the teachers finally start getting more and more of their increments on time and getting their upgrades sorted out. And you sit down there as a public servant. You doing up all the paperwork for that to happen. You doing up all the paperwork to pay people their salaries. You are also seeing where the THA is approving, giving support to this sports club, to this group, to that group. And you're saying, but when will my payday come? And that's naturally, that disparity will result in some demotivation among the public servants. And so part of the problem, firstly, is to fix the issues with the administrators. Because what that does, the proposal is the chief ad becomes a PS equivalent to that of the PS in the Ministry of Finance. And the other admins become a PS at the level just beneath that. What that will do is that will force the SRC, the Salary Review Commission, and the Service Commission to begin to raise the standard for everybody else. Because in that case, a rising tide will lift all boats. And so that's part of the strategy why I have been going so hard behind fixing the issues with the administrators, because it invariably helps those lower down the ladder.
And the disparity with nurses and protective services that hold the same qualifications.
And well, so far we have treated with the contract part of the issue. Because, you know, before some were on month to month, 3 months, 1 year, and we have worked it out that, you know, we're giving them minimum of 3 years, but that's not ideal. What is ideal is getting people on the establishment. Unfortunately for the public service in Trinidad and Tobago, getting people on the establishment takes a longer time. And so the 3-year contract is really there to soften the blow, while at the same time give them some measure of financial stability while preparing to get them in the establishment. To get people on the establishment, for example, it requires that we do an audit. It requires that we do the justification, that we write to cabinet, and that cabinet approves the increase on the establishment, and then we move people onto the establishment. And it's not just nurses, you have teachers in that position. I was one of them as a contracted educator, doing the same work as my colleagues, sometimes working later. It had days the school bell ring the next morning and I'm in the same clothes I had on the day before, right? And I had to sneak out break time and go and bathe and change and come back, because you're working so hard and you're young and you want to see success. You're up late, treating with SBS, helping children, walking them through the system and so on. But your salary is significantly less than your colleagues who are doing the same work just because you are contracted. And that is something that we know we have to address, that is outstanding to be addressed. And while I'm at it, when we look at our recurrent expenditure budget, just over $1 billion, significantly more than our capital development. One of the challenges is that our recurrent expenditure budget did not cater for some of these increases. In fact, let me extend the point. We have quite a number of vacancies in the system in terms of daily rated workers. but our current expenditure budget did not budget for filling these vacancies immediately. And so divisions are at a crossroad asking, well, if we fill them, how do we pay for them? Do we cut back on some of the capital development side things to hire them? And that we're trying to work out right now. And let me also say this, that on Wednesday, our Executive Council meeting on Wednesday is actually different from the previous ones, in that this one on Wednesday, I spoke to the chief on Friday about it. Just Friday, so she should be informing the administrators today. But this Wednesday, we are actually bringing the administrators into our Executive Council meeting so that we could discuss some of these public service issues, because we want our public servants to be happy. And remember, our political leader was just the other day the leader of the public servants. And we cannot come to this place and not take care of our public servants. We have to take care of our public servants. It is taking longer than we would like, but we have to put in the work, do the thing properly, and ensure we could bring our public servants up.
Time's up before we head into this break. But viewers, stay tuned, because you just touched on a very salient point that we would want to go into in the next segment, speaking to the issue of the political leader and now venturing into Trinidad in terms of entering that space down there and some questioning in relation to the responsibilities vested in him in the capacity as Deputy Chief Secretary. Viewers, this is the Tobago Updates morning show, and yes, we are chatting with the Chief Secretary, the Honorable Farley Chavez Augustine. And yes, folks, as we just note, stay tuned. He's going to be right on set with us to continue the conversation dealing with these focused areas that, yes, Tobago wants to know about Trinidad and Tobago, and I dare say even those of us living in the region and abroad. At this point, we want to remind you to share the live, share the live, share the live.
There's a taste in the air everywhere. Feel the vibe, cause it's something to share. Smooth, rich and creamy, you'll find it right here. Makes you smile, relax a while, it's fun and good cheer. Ooh, enjoy every scoop. Ooh, every taste will get you hooked. We have flavors that you love, a combination special. Come along, enjoy our treats. This is Uncle Pete's.
Advertise with Tobago Updates. Call 284-6597. If you have a small or large business, we can get your information in front of the masses. Reach our rapidly growing viewership on Facebook and YouTube. Promote your brand in Trinidad and the Caribbean through M&E TV Now and Gayel. Yes, we can build unique ads for your business. Call now 284-6597 and advertise with us.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Welcome back to the Tobago Updates, morning show, which slides into Good Morning Tobago, as we continue the conversation with the Honorable Chief Secretary Farley Augustine. All right, so taking off from where Julian left off, Mr. Augustine, in terms of what's been happening with the Office of the Deputy Chief Secretary, because that it continues to raise concerns among Tobagonians in the space.
All right, so the Deputy Chief Secretary's office is up and running, has been up and running. The Office of the Deputy Chief Secretary is located at Shaw Park. That's where sport and youth, where they were. His office is there. He is settling into the space nicely, and I did indicate previously the areas over which he has some remit. Yes. Number one, we expect the Deputy Chief Secretary to speak to the issue of Tobago autonomy, and for the first time we have built into the executive someone who will purposefully spend time, dedicated time, advancing that autonomy issue and getting an appropriate autonomy bill passed at the Parliament. Secondly, built into his office will be a monitoring and evaluation system. What that does is that Mr. Duke has some authority with some staff that he will have to acquire that will be looking at all the policy decisions, all the activities, all the execution across the entire THA space. So we have built in an internal monitoring and evaluation system for the Executive Council and by extension all our policies and the things that we do. Thirdly, Mr. Duke's office will be engaging members in the diaspora and how we bring them into the space and have them a part of what we do here in Tobago. And on the fourth level, we campaign on this, that for the first time at some point, we will have a THA house, an office in Port of Spain that will take care of some of the needs of our Tobagonians that live and work down there, our students down there. But more than that, this unit will help with the marketing of Tobago goods and the services, will help with the promotion of Tobago, will be for the attracting of investors and investments from Trinidad and elsewhere that come into the Trinidad space to Tobago's side. And that will be first for us here, but not new in the world of our arrangements. And I did on the campaign trail highlight some examples.
Right.
The fact that there is a Scottish house that exists in London, and Scotland is part of the United Kingdom. And so they can't have an ambassador to London, but they have a Scottish house in London. There's a embassy for Florida in Washington, D.C., although they are part of the same United States of America. The idea behind doing that is to ensure that where the sovereign resides, where the central government resides, you have an office there that can help to advocate the case of those of us in this space that have been marginalized for so long. And so the Office of the Deputy Chief Secretary, he has his hands full in terms of the requirement for the Office of the Deputy Chief Secretary. And it's one of the reasons why we did not attach another portfolio to it, because we want him to zero down on these issues.
And then another concern that's been in the air is that of the Dubai trip and then the presentation that Mr. Duke would have made in Dubai as for the development of Roxborough. Now, I want to know, how does that plan fit in with the overall THA's plan for the development of Tobago, and are we really seeing fruits of that visit in Dubai?
Well, the visit in Dubai, let me remind you, this was a global exposition hosted by the government of Dubai, to which Trinidad and Tobago carried a contingent, a team there. Granted, our participation in that team was quite minimal. In fact, at one point we considered not attending. And at the last minute we said, you know what, we need to participate in this thing because we're getting to go to Dubai and to promote things to Tobago. Part of what Mr. Duke presented in Dubai had to do with the fact that we have, for many years, a development agenda for the island of Tobago that excluded the people from Tobago East and Tobago North, that excluded what we call as country or rural Tobago. And some time past, there was a rural development unit that did not do any work, right? That's another unit that had to restructure. Yes. Where when you look at the unit, not a single report, not a single activity. The office that was allocated to them up at Roxborough was never used, full of dust, the door never opened, all of those things. So we just had to get rid of them because they were non-workers, drawing 22,000 plus per month, all of them. Right? So we had to get rid of them and to restart the unit from scratch, because what is absolutely needed is that rural Tobago be part of that conversation. Rural Tobago, by definition, not just our definition, but also definition of the former Executive Council and what they had in their build-out. By definition, from statistics from the CSO, although the last CSO statistics was 2011, we're looking at from Mount St. George all the way up east, around to Charlottesville, down to Mason Hall, and also including going across to Lake Oto, Golden Lane, and those areas. Rural Tobago has, we have not spent sufficient time as an island taking care of rural Tobago. And yes, I will be the first to tell you it's the most beautiful part of the island.
Certainly.
It is the part that we have the Man and the Biosphere designation, which is an important designation that we have to maintain and preserve. But the people in these parts require some attention, some much needed attention. And it's why at this point we have the patching gang, the paving gang, the Baba Green gang up in Palatine, Bloody Bay doing some work. Because for years they have not had any kind of attention. And yes, we will get to that road behind the mall and so on. That's the next stop actually.
I hope so.
that's actually next stop. But we needed to make a point to the people in the countryside that look, not because you are small and your population size is small, we are going to leave you to rot and not take care of your needs too. So because we want to create a healthy balance.
Right.
And so if it is we are looking at how we could reshape the city of Scarborough, then we need to have a discussion about how we reshape the city of Roxborough. How do we do that? And I could tell you there are some things already in the works.
So we're actually seeing the fruit of those meetings that Mr. Duke would have had in Dubai.
Yes, and some things are and beyond that, and what Mr. Duke presented in Dubai, those are things that would have surfaced from his conversations and his meetings with the people in Roxborough. In fact, the last one he had, I think he held it at the Sid Gray complex when he met with his people
and
there.
And that was like right before he went to
Dubai.
And
that was the last one he had, but that was on the back end of a series of conversations with them. And when we look at what's happening in Roxborough now, the hotel development is getting started there, so the earthworks are happening there. Soon the Sid Gray complex will be redone. We have to redo the turf and ensure that there's irrigation and sprinkler system and scoreboard and a press box. So that will become dedicated to cricket. The playing field at Roxborough, over at Roxborough Secondary and over at Kendall at the farm school there, those playing fields are going are actually being prepared to be redone. They will get bleachers and so on, so football will not be left out in the area. We have the hospital getting started. They're still in the teething stage with Dr. Duke leading the charge up there. But next door to that, we should have a massive laboratory service that will allow for laboratory services, scanning services, and so on. We are going to put out an RPO to invite people to come into the space that will do things like rehab and other medical services. So we have a nice sort of medical center going on in the area, teaching as part of it. So we'll be doing those bill out there to ensure people that live in the country know that you are considered. I spoke to the Transport Commissioner 2 weeks ago, and we are well on our way to preparing to get licensing, move up to the administrative complex. Finally, after all this while in Roxborough, there will be some smart hub in the space. So we're looking at that circuit between the administrative complex, Sid Gray, into Roxborough Secondary there, and that zone being Wi-Fi free and having available access points, free access points for the public in that space, because it's all about ensuring that we're not just building a single urban area, but that we are treating with the development of rural Tobago, which will reduce the push and pull factors that have encouraged so many of our people to leave country and come to town and live and never look back and never return. It means that we are depleting the countryside of human capital, which is absolutely necessary. So many of the people I grew up with who have university degrees, who are well skilled, have just migrated to the town area, as we say, low side, as we say, living on this end of the island, renting, not returning home because we don't have sufficient housing, availability of land, services, access to entertainment and private development. All of those things we have to look at comprehensively when we are talking rural development. And who better to lead that charge than the king of Roxborough himself, Mr. Duke.
All right, so moving on in the conversation to that of the Marina, which has been in this space for a while, right? Now, the THA would have written a letter to NIDCO seeking a meeting on what's been happening with the Marina. And then you also said on Friday that you have no knowledge of a Marina for Friendship. What you know of is a marina for Cove. So I just want you to explain that a little bit and give us some details.
So there were previous conversations between previous THA administrations and the central government about doing marinas at Cove. That conversation has happened well before my time here. And then out of the blue, we saw RPOs being put out for marina at Friendship by NITCO. No conversation with the THA, not even a communique, not even a howdy. And I could let you know that the Secretary for Infrastructure did write to NITCO seeking a meeting, not about marina, but about all NITCO projects in Tobago that will include the airport. And was unsuccessful in getting that meeting because NITCO basically said, look, a secretary don't have authority to really meet with us. Granted, the THA Act says that secretaries and ministers ought to have regular conversations. And if secretaries and ministers can meet and have conversations, I don't know that a state agency could say that a secretary has no authority to write to them seeking a meeting. To me, that is out of place. Notwithstanding, when I saw last week that NITCO was talking about going to EMA and so on, I said, but NITCO had to be mad. NITCO and talk to nobody, how NITCO could be putting out RPOs. So I had the Senior State Council dispatch a letter with urgency to NITCO, pointing out that the THA has not given approval to this project and NITCO is operating illegally, out of place and out of order. NITCO has responded to our letter, and NITCO in its letter said, look, there were discussions, there was a joint team between THA and the central government, and there was agreement that Tobago should have marinas. Not specifically where, but that Tobago should have marinas. And that there's a cabinet minute that required NITCO to have a MOU with the THA to have marinas in Tobago.
And was that MOU done?
There was MOU was never done. So how the hell NITCO end up putting out RPO for marina in Friendship? No MOU, no further discussion on where, when, how, nothing. But you down in Trinidad and deciding you just go in and put marina in Friendship. Let me tell you something. The THA Act, number 1, vests all state lands in the THA, inclusive of those in Friendship. And I could tell you, the Commissioner of State Lands came and dutifully vested the lands in Friendship in the THA, and we have records of that. Further, let me share with you what the THA Act says in terms of Section 25.3. Section 25.3 says, where a statutory authority or a state enterprise provides services in Tobago, that authority or enterprise shall, not may, not if they want to, shall, in exercising its duties in relation to those services, act in accordance with the policies or programs of the Assembly. So NITCO cannot act in accordance with the policy or program of the central government. You have to act in accordance with the policy or programs of the Assembly. It's a state enterprise. It must know its place. And to this end, this is the law, and to this end, may enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Assembly. That's 25.3. So NITCO very well know that they have to come and have a MOU before, or have some sign-off from the THA before they move. And they did not do that. Secondly, when you look at Section 27 of the THA Act, Act 40 of 1996, it says, where services fall within the responsibility of the Assembly, pursuant to Section 25.1, or where the Assembly acts as an agent of the government, statutory authority or state enterprise pursuant to 26.2, the services shall, not if, but or maybe, but shall be administered by the Assembly. So in other words, there's nothing in the law that stops the central government from enacting a policy with regards to Tobago. But the law is clear. That policy has to be administered by the THA. And where there is a state agency wishing to do business in Tobago, that state agency must get buying from the THA first. The THA must sign on the dotted line first. So NITCO has now asked for us to consider meeting with them.
Consider meeting?
Well, they ask if I will either delegate somebody to meet with them or come and meet with them. right? Of course, our lawyers are going to respond to them because we are clear. NITCO needs to cease and desist. When we have that conversation, when we have that meeting, and I'll see where they will fall in my rather busy schedule. After we have met and we have discussed the matter, the executive can come to an agreement in terms of how we wish to proceed. And let me be clear, Tobago needs some marinas.
And I think that's the agreement across the board.
It's in our economic advantage to have marinas. So we're not saying no to marinas. We are also not saying no to outsiders coming to build marinas. We're not saying no to that either. We are also not saying no to a Trini perhaps coming to be the one to fund or build a marina. What we are saying is that you cannot do so outside of the Tobago House of Assembly. The Tobago House of Assembly and the people of Tobago by extension must be part of that conversation. You can't just come in and act on your own. Plus, the THA Act gives us up to 6 miles in terms of authority for our jurisdiction for exclusive executive administrative authority. And so I don't understand what prompted NITCO to act in that manner. And
I don't know if you've looked at the designs as well. Have you looked at the designs to see how elaborate they are in terms of, having a water park, reclaiming the land, having to dredge the reef that's out there, potentially damaging the reef to the point where the coastlines would be vulnerable?
I've not seen detailed plans, right? What we have seen is a mock-up. And of course, in situations like this, you will have a conceptual thing. You have to go through EMA. You will have to get a certificate of environmental clearance, which will include consultations, which environmentalists will be a part of. So I'm not fearful of that process. That process tends to ensure that people operate by the books and what is required. I will have you know that prior to us coming into office, that the former administration gave piece of land to an enterprise to do a water park inside Friendship itself, to do a water park, not necessarily in the sea, but to do a water park in the area. So that was already given. That cannot be taken back. And so I think there are some Tobago principals who are part of that as well. And that's why there is need for all of this conversation. Is the water park feature that NITCO is proposing for the marina, how does that impact the others that the THA previously gave a commitment to set up a water park in the same area? Will there be conflict? Will we have 2 water parks within walking distance of each other? You understand? Yes. All of these would be addressed if NITCO just have a conversation first and get the support and buying from the THA first. And they say NITCO perhaps is accustomed to a THA that they could just walk in and do what they want, and this THA will just agree, because Marriott is another issue. Right. And let me quickly talk to Marriott, because some people think that Marriott is a done deal. Marriott is not a done deal. What this executive is doing what is the responsible thing about Marriott. When we got into office, the principals with Marriott, unlike NITCO, reached out to the executive and said, look, this thing was popped up before, had popped up before. The central government had this tender out. We won the bid, and they gave us the authority to set up Marriott in Rockley Bay, right? In Rockley Bay, sorry. And so we want to talk about it. So from the get-go, they realized, look, there's a new administration, and they can't just walk in and do what they want.
So you just need to have that conversation first.
So what we did, the first thing we did is that the Deputy Chief Secretary started the conversation. So the Deputy Chief Secretary met with them and had the first set of conversations. Then a larger team of 5 members from the Executive Council sat with them, had a conversation that included Mr. George, who is the area representative for that area. Then I said to them, look, before there could be any sign-off, because with this Marriott, there are no approvals, designs are not final, so Marriott ain't reached gone anywhere yet. Marriott not even off the ground. I said before anything, Tobagonians have to be part of the conversation. So come to the Tobago space, we will invite some stakeholders to come along, we will walk the land, look at the plans you have, you will then go back, prepare your final plans in accordance with what the stakeholders say, present that to Tobago, the wider public of Tobago, and have a conversation before the THA can give you the sign-off. So the THA has not signed off. In fact, the THA is now trying to take some ownership of the thing. The principals admitted to us that this was the first conversation they were having with the executive.
Wow.
So imagine they got approval to put down a hotel in Tobago. It was announced in Tobago. We had an invalid chief secretary, politically invalid chief secretary sitting down there, and not a prior conversation between the principals of this hotel and the executive. That's not happening with this executive, eh? That is not happening with this executive. And so we took them on the land. We brought out those from the Historical Society and the conservationists.
Right.
We brought out surfers. We brought out people who live in the Mount Irving area and live next door. We brought representatives from the THA who have a part to play, from tourism to infrastructure to the area rep. And we walked the land. We looked at the thing. And we pointed out several issues. We pointed out the need for protection of the coastline, the need for sewer treatment. What is happening with our water sewer treatment next door down at Mount Irving there, and how functional or not functional that is. We looked at all the historical artifacts that are found there. We may actually have on that site the single oldest built heritage, not just fort, but the single oldest property of that kind anywhere in the Caribbean region, right there.
Wow.
And what people did not know is that in the 1980s, the THA wanted to build a hotel there too. And the THA brought in a famed archaeologist from Germany who looked and prepared a research paper on the thing. We have since reached out and we are trying to get the archaeologist back here, because we say, look, before you're moving and do anything, let us bring in the archaeologists and preserve that which we have there, that is part of Tobago's heritage. And beyond that fort, there are quite a number of artifactual stuff you could find from indigenous people having used that space.
Yes.
So that too needs to be preserved in all that is happening there. And so the principals at Marriott will now have to come back with what they will propose as their final design. We will look at it as a THA. We'll bring it to the people of Tobago to ask yea or nay how we feel about this thing. And then that will determine how we move forward. That, to me, is a more responsible way for engaging. Because what it says is that the THA is not giving up its responsibility. The people of Tobago are not being shafted, but that we are managing our own future. We are managing it ourselves. And so, contrary to what some might think, is not we are opposed to outside investors. We are not opposed to foreign direct investment either. What we are saying is that it must be done on the terms and conditions of the people of Tobago. That is what autonomy is. The THA Act affords us that, and so we cannot relent on that matter.
All right, well, thank you. But don't worry, viewers. We have more of this conversation to continue right after the break, when Denicia will be joining us on set to, get into the issues of autonomy and so on. And of course, a lot of you are wondering what's happening.
Sure.
MI4 Security Services Company is the most advanced security service in Tobago. Ask about our cash and transit service. It's safe, risk-free, reliable, and timely. We provide safe banking delivery for all business types and sizes with highly trained staff, 24/7 monitoring, coordinated emergency response, and a well-maintained fleet of armored vehicles. Contact us at 660-7723 or visit our website at www.mi4securitytt.com to sign up today.
Tobago Glass Supplies has been a leading name for over 37 years in the glass and aluminum market in Tobago. We provide an extensive range of high-quality, innovative aluminum and glass products for commercial and residential use. Competitive prices with superior and professional services by committed employees who are guided by rigid quality standards. Tobago Glass Supplies specializes in the manufacture and installation of glass and aluminum products that are essential to today's homeowners and the business environment. We are engaged in marketing, sales, and installation of a variety of products. These ranges from windows and doors to necessities such as mirrors for homes and vehicles, designed and manufactured in-house or imported.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. With us is the Honorable Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Mr. Farley Augustine. Good morning. So we have been having some riveting and fruitful conversations for the entire morning. So how do you feel now? How are you feeling?
Listen, I am always happy to talk to the people of Tobago. And since becoming Chief Secretary, I have had to remind myself to be very measured in how much I talk to the people of Tobago, because everything I say naturally becomes news. And even in my responses, I have had to scale a lot of that back. But I enjoy talking to the people of Tobago so much so that I am inundated with the numbers of people I need to see for public days. That is usually for a Thursday, and at this moment today, I'm having some people scheduled from 1 p.m. I'm having some more scheduled again on Thursday, because the numbers are so much. Literally hundreds of people who have called and made appointments to be able to see me, and I'm hoping I could get out with these numbers first, and so that I could open it up in a way that you could just show up without a prior appointment. I can't allow that now, because if I do, then we'll be flooded with hundreds of people on a day, and we just won't be able to see everybody. But I'm always happy to talk to the people of Tobago, because it's about communicating with people, communicating not just the successes, but our leadership have to be willing to communicate our fears, communicate the things that give us anxiety, the things that make us angry, the things that make us happy. Communicate about the things that we have failed at, the things that we're struggling with, the challenges, because we are all in this governance thing together. It's not just the people you vote there, but you too are part of this process with us.
A lot of PDP supporters have the feeling that you have broken the promises as it relates to Tobago's autonomy. Could you give more details about that, and I guess to ease their frustrations with the Tobago autonomy?
Well, you can't break the promises of Tobago autonomy in just 5 months. It has been only 5 months as of the 10th of May, which was last week. Only 5 months, not even half of a year that we have been here. And two things has to happen. One, in your first stages, you have to have quite a bit of cleanup activity that have to happen, because you inherit a mess. You have to clean up that mess, one. And two, you have to plan strategically for this autonomy thing. Tobago has, in my view, Tobago has been at this for a very long time, this autonomy issue. But all of our ventures and adventures have failed, in that it has not resulted in the kind of autonomy that we want. Right. And so the question for this administration is, are we going to use the same strategies that we have always used? Just come up, have some public consultations, people come, they talk, we write down, and we go to the parliament and it gets shut down? Or are we going to sit carefully and think about what other strategy we can use? Part of Mr. Duke's foray in Trinidad is also part of that strategy, because one of the challenges with getting the autonomy bill passed is having a hold on the executive power in Trinidad that we have to rely on to be able to get any autonomy bill passed. So that is also part of the strategy. I did indicate that Deputy Chief Secretary Duke is the one to lead the charge with the autonomy conversations. And so that will come up soon when we start discussing the budget. In fact, we have started the internal consultations for the budget, which will come up in next month in June. My first budget, our first budget, which will come up in June. So we have started internal conversations, and later this week we will start some external conversations. We'll be on social media platforms that people could come and contribute. And one of the most important questions you have to ask ourselves is exactly how much Tobago contributes to the national purse. That is critical to the conversation on autonomy and us being able to negotiate our way to that better place in terms of governance authority. If you listen in the campaign, and I was one of those that strongly criticized the Prime Minister, who said that Tobago only contribute about $200 million based on taxes. And I said that could never be. That could never be, because all of those oil companies that drilling our waters don't pay the taxes in Tobago. All of those banks and insurance companies don't pay the taxes in Tobago. All of those multinational companies like Courts or KFC or even, well, Royal Castle is a national company, or Standards or American Stores, none of those pay their taxes in Tobago. Most of these companies that operate in Tobago spaces and make lots of money don't pay their taxes in Tobago. And so I was one of those that said, look, you cannot say that all Tobago contributes $200 million annually, and so we're not deserving of all of this autonomy that we're talking about. And so part of that negotiation has to be getting a proper study done in terms of how much do we contribute at this moment to the national purse, how much Tobago contributes to the national purse at this moment, so that we can in a dignified manner demand what is rightfully ours, so that we can in a dignified manner have a conversation about moving the autonomy needle along the path. I will also say this, that many Tobagonians, many more Tobagonians are frustrated to the point where they're saying, look, Farley, we like the autonomy thing, but that is not our priority. Our priority now is bread and butter, because many have lost jobs. Many are struggling in terms of keeping their children in school and paying for the necessities in schooling and so on. So that too must be managed, and I want Tobagonians to know that we can do several things simultaneously. And so yes, the autonomy conversation is coming up, because we can't talk budgeting and not talk autonomy. And I plan to invite many of those in this space who even disagree with my worldview on the autonomy. There are some people in this space who believe we should secede. There are some people who believe we should have a federation. People believe different things. And I will be inviting them to have those conversations with me publicly as we engage the public. And while we may not all have the same viewpoint in terms of how to get the autonomy, there are some things that we all agree on as Tobagonians, and those things that we all agree on must be the first point of reference to get this autonomy conversation we started.
You made mention that there's going to be a budget in June. What are your expectations, or what do you hope to achieve for that budget in June?
Well, based on the law, it is a requirement that the THA presents a budget in June, and that budget be sent down to Parliament through the Minister of Finance. You would be reminded that this will be our first budget in, what, 2 years? Because we had no budget last year, none at all. We were at the 6-6 deadlock, and we had no budget. And so the Minister of Finance just gave us an appropriation based on what he thinks was fit for Tobago. And so a budget has to be done. Part of that budget is about realigning the THA to that larger vision of how do we make Tobago the greatest little island on the planet, and how do we, in a systematic way, build out our society child by child, family by family, village by village, which means that we are looking for elements that will impact people at the very base, impact the grassroots, impact small communities. How do we get small communities involved? We are looking at how do we rethink tourism, how do we add technology to our product, how do we upgrade our product. We are looking at the issue of public safety, and what does that mean? In the past, Tobago has spoken about having a Tobago police force akin to the Borough Corporation. And so we are taking another look at that under the Supplemental Police Act. We are also looking at young people, young professionals. How do we target them for things like housing? You are in your 20s and you are now gainfully employed. You're now starting on your career. How do we get you a piece of land so that you could start your home as well? And so you can expect to see in the budget us planning out housing development where the target market for that housing development is really just young professionals only, so that you could start this early, while at the same time we try to take care of the older ones within the system who have applied for many years and can't get through. We are also talking about how do we bring relief to people, how do we treat with the vacancies among daily rated workers, and being able to fund that. How do we get some outstanding capital development works? We have, as some of the things Tobagoans are demanding are not big and pie in the sky. Some of those things are simple things like retaining walls and drainage systems that could treat with land slippages and so on, because the very geology of Tobago demands that we spend some money on retaining systems and drainage systems, because more than half of the island is volcanic, and a feature of volcanic geology is deep, fertile soils, but also steep contours. And so we have to treat with that matter, treat with the fact that we have the main ridge in the center, the reefs and the waters more or less sandwiching our communities, especially those heading east and around north. So how do we treat with them? How do we preserve the UNESCO Man and the Biosphere designation and develop sustainably, develop in a green way? And so we're looking for a lot of novel inputs. I'm excited by what we will bring and put on the table. We are also looking to see how we could fund innovation, how we could get systems to work, how do we rehash the policies that we use at BDU. So for example, at the moment, BDU does not give grant funding for raw material or for products. You get grant funding for equipment, but we're going to change our policy. So if you have the equipment already and what you need is just the raw materials to get a startup, then we'll be inclined to give that too. There are some restrictions in BDU in terms of who you could purchase from, where you could get your materials from, and whether you could import or not. And we want to remove some of those restrictions. We're taking another look at Venture Capital Fund Limited, because we have seen far too many failures in that system. So several things we are going to look at, but we are going to have a conversation about it. Before we present the budget, we are going to sit and us at the Division of Financial and Economy, we're going to have these public conversations and consultations where you could join us publicly. You can tell us some of the things you would like to see in the budget so that we could see whether it's aligned to some of our vision, because the truth is, we campaign on stuff. People voted, but there may be things that we campaign on that people didn't really too agree with, but they think it was better than what our opponents presented, and so it's important to hear from them. We are also going to start in the month of June at least an 8-month consultative process to get our new development plan. The CEDP, which is the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan, that expired a long time ago. It expired before I even came into office in 2017. And therefore, we are outstanding a new Comprehensive Economic Development Plan. And so we're going to start the process so that by the time we get to June next year, we will have a fresh economic development plan for the island, which will show our long-term plan and goal for the island of Tobago. Of course, you're going to hear some exciting stuff about Scarborough. The IDB, through the IDB facility given through the Ministry of Planning, we have some $37 million allocated to Scarborough, and what we're looking at is treating with the matter of traffic. And so we know we have to do a system of roundabouts at Lower Milford Road, that's down at that bridge down to Coast Guard, going up to where the new hotel is there, as well, so that the flow of traffic in that area will be managed. We're looking at moving some of those overhead lines that are quite nasty to a utility corridor along that entire Milford Road, straight up towards Uptown. We're looking at that. We're also looking at launching out, and this is even in this fiscal year, even before we get to the new fiscal year, starting the program of work for the rehabilitation of the botanical gardens, which should be the pride and joy of the island, because that's an important green space in the middle of the city. That is our version of the Queen's Park Savannah, and so we have to protect it as well. And so there's some exciting stuff that you can look forward to. And we're also looking at how we could empower young people, empower community organizations, empower family-run businesses too, because we have recognized that some of our most successful businesses are family-run businesses. Look at the businesses in Scarborough that have lasted the longest. They are all family-run enterprises: the Parkers, the Abrahams, the Leacocks, Wong, Joy Wong and her family, and so on. All family-run enterprises that have withstood the test of time and have shown to have some resiliency and so on. So we have to pay special attention to family-run business and teach families how to set up their businesses in a way that will protect members of the family, and that you don't have to have a family business that ends in quarrel or bacchanal either. All of those things we have to factor in when we are discussing that new budget that will come up in June. So I'm excited. You should be excited too. We're starting the discussions this week. We expect you to be part of that conversation, part of that discussion for the budget that is to come in the month of June.
So, Mr. Augustine, you said a lot of interesting and exciting things, but I want to touch on one thing, and that being youths, right? Now, you made mention of at some point in time, a youth may want to own a house. Now, I'm 25, I'll be 26 next week, Sunday. And sometimes when I think about the economics and how hard it is and the struggle and with prices increasing, you wonder sometimes, am I really taking 10 steps backwards? Because although there are a lot of resources and opportunities, sometimes you feel like you still can't rise above it. So what do you say to youths who may feel discouraged or disheartened about wanting to do better but not having the right opportunities, whether it be trying to afford a home that is very expensive, trying to even purchase a plot of land that is even more expensive? What do you speak on that, and how we can navigate towards making sure that there is something, a sustainable plan for youths on the island?
You know, during the campaign, I did something interesting. And I'll see if I could find it back. But during the campaign, I took a look at what it costs for the average person to actually own a home, to get a mortgage in Tobago. And I found that to be able to own a home in Tobago, most people need to have 2 salaries. Which is unfortunate. So it means that you as a young lady, you have to find a man someplace to put your salary with a next man, with a man, sorry, in order to own a home. That's what the system is saying to you. It's saying to me as a young man, find a wife before you could be able to get a mortgage for a home. Because the average home on the island might be around 1.3 million. And to qualify for that from all accounts, from all the banks, your salary have to be 20,000+, as high as $30,000, as low as about $25,000. And most individuals don't earn that on their own accord. And so the system locks us out. And one of the reasons why I took umbrage to the attack that was made against me about the fact that I live downstairs my parents' house. What most people don't understand is that my story is not different from most young professionals. And I'm not stealing anybody money. I'm not looking for corruption. I'm not looking for kickback. I'm not looking for anybody to build me no nice big mansion, know about it, no hill, know about. I am looking to earn my own way to owning my own home. And most young people, like myself, have no other option but that. And I think most people who were here before ignored that reality because they got to a place where they got links. Links got them piece of land from the government. And you could ask other politicians in the space who has made noise if they were benefactors of lands from settlements, and whether or not they didn't have to call a link to get it, and because their party was in power, they got it, right? And in fact, the house draw for Riseland was perhaps the fairest one we have had in quite some time. And most young people have been locked out by both what happens at settlement and what happens through the banking system. They just cannot afford. And I did, as a young person, I did what most young people, what we do, especially those of us in the countryside. Went to the bank, got a series of unsecured loans, because the bank, because it's unsecured, will give you some. When you get the unsecured loan, you go, you buy some bricks, you buy some cement, you put that up, you pay off that loan, you go, you get a next unsecured one, you put in your windows, your doors, you go back, you get some next set, you go and you buy your tiles, you put it down. So when I tell people I live downstairs my parents' house, and I'm unashamed of that, is because I know what it took for that downstairs to be built out, and how many unsecured loan as a contracted educator in the system I had to take. And although my salary was greater than my parents' salary, the bank will never give me a long-term loan the way they will give my parents if they were younger. And that is not a unique story. That is a story of so many Tobagonians. But here's the good news. You have a chief secretary who have lived that experience. You have a chief secretary and a secretary of finance who has experienced what you are now experiencing, and what so many of our young professionals are experiencing. That's why I could say to you, one of the features of the budget to come is that we are going to pay special attention to home ownership by young professionals. And how do we get you on the market sooner rather than later? How do we convert the subsidies that the teacher will normally give for home ownership into at least land ownership by you, the young person, and allowing you to kata and build? And I will always use the example of Signal Hill or Susu lands to show that Tobagonians have a way of finding a way to build their own home, and that Lenhan is not dead. Because I'm certain if I give you a piece of land, Miss Dempster, if I give you a piece of land now, I'm certain you will have the capability to call up some uncle, some brother, some cousin, some godfather, somebody somewhere about to come and assist you. And you may not be able to build the dream house immediately, but I'm certain you will get somebody to come and line out. You go dig the trench, then you go and buy some steel, and you organize yourself. You cast out your trench, you come up, you do your foundation. You will take your time. And by the time you get 2 years from there, you will see where you probably get a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom with the opportunity to add on. But at least you have your own home. You have your own space, which is important. And we have to begin to get our young people into owning assets, because one of the problems I have is the absence of an opportunity for intergenerational wealth on this island, for young people to inherit something. And so many of our young people have not inherited sufficiently from their parents. And therefore, as young people, we now have to create a legacy that we must now be able to pass on to the generations to come. We have to be able to pass on those things to the generation to come, and to your children. And so we want to get you started, Miss Dempster. I hear your pain, and so many of the others looking on similarly are struggling to get to that place. They can't get a salary of $25,000 to $30,000. I could tell you, most of your assemblymen can't, by virtue of the requirement in the bank, will not be given a mortgage, a long-term mortgage, to be able to afford the kind of land and house that they need. Because remember, this is a 4-year job, It's a contract for 4 years. So that's another issue that has to bear in mind. And that's also how contract employment in the THA affects your financial standing with the bank and your ability for home ownership. Because if the contracts are not done well, then it becomes incredibly difficult for you to be able to get access to housing that you need.
It's very comforting to hear your response, because like you rightfully said, as a young person, you want to have assets. You want to have something that you could call your own. You want to be able to look back and say, I did great. And I remember there was an old man that told me once, he said, it don't matter if you're young now. Buy your blocks and put it down. The last thing to buy is your steel. But buy your blocks and put it down. And he was actually a builder. So he was giving me advice based on his experience, because he said to me, the amount of money that you have to pay a laborer sometimes is so much that you ask yourself, why am I even building? So he gave me the advice to buy your stuff and put it down. It don't matter if you have no land to put it on. Buy it and put it down. Switching gears a little bit, we celebrated doctors and nurses a week ago. However, some of them have been complaining that they have still been on the 2013 salary. So what can you say to that, or what advice or direction could you give us as it relates to that specific issue?
Well, remember, the CPO has only just reopened negotiations for 2013 salary. That is not controlled by the THA, that's controlled by the central government. And I wish that some of those opposites will make noise with their people in Trinidad and tell them, look, pay the people their money. The people need to be paid properly. They need to be paid living wages. And so negotiations only commenced about a month ago with the CPO, with the unions, to move the salary from 2013 and a little higher. So too, I am hopeful that that will result in some back pay for the nurses and doctors. So please, when that happens, please, I beg of you, save it or invest it well. Don't use it wildly. And I'm hopeful that pretty soon that situation will change. And, you know, while I'm at it, let me express gratitude to our doctors and nurses, because I have been to the hospital several times since becoming Chief Secretary, sometimes on private accord, sometimes to visit people. I've been there to actually visit the staff, and I could tell you they work extremely hard. They work beyond the hours required to work. They are stressed to the core, and we don't pay them enough. We don't. And yes, I'm saying thank you to them, but thank you is not enough to really compensate for the work they do. When a man or a woman works, they must be paid for duly for the output of labor that they give. And so I'm hopeful that soon we will rise above the 2013 salaries. I'm also hopeful that we'll be able to not just remunerate them well, but be able to fix some of their staffing issues, scheduling issues, and some of the bugbears on the system there. And I could tell you the TRHA is heavily indebted, indebted to the point where I know they owe Tiantec millions. They owe the helicopter services over 27 million and so on. And so there are challenges in the TRHA. And we're working to resolve those challenges and try to pay off some of those debt and to bring the TRHA to, you know, to an even keel, a place where they could function optimally. And that will hopefully also address some of the staff shortages and so on that they have.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up this lovely discussion and conversation.
And I have to go to, because at 10 today, I'm meeting with a set of ambassadors and consulates from the European Union, the European Commission, actually. And so, yes, I will have to go as well.
Unfortunately, I wish we could have, you know, gotten a little bit more time to continue our conversations. However, are there any final words, any last comments that we want to give to the public?
Certainly. Let me say this. Tobago is poised for great things. Tobago is poised to do new things. Tobago is poised for change. I am confident that we can execute the change that we speak of. I am confident that we can take the decisive steps that are necessary. I won't spend a whole lot of time in the politicking. I have been purposefully ignoring most of the Facebook banter and only commenting when I think it's absolutely necessary to do so. But we won't be distracted. As I indicated, sometimes when you have a messy situation, it takes some good scrubbing to clean it out. And sometimes the scrubbing it requires some pain and some bruising of the knuckles and so on, but also the bruising of the knees, because quite a lot of prayer and fasting is required for successful what we need to do. I will not be wavered. We will not be wavering from some of the firm decisions that must be taken. We are getting there. We are at a place where we think we are ready to start jumping off some of the larger plans, because we spent 5 months trying to clean up, organizing the system properly for efficiency. That does not mean that we are going to go there and hire every PDP that say they want to work. And I know that is one of the things that have been popping up too, that you ain't hiring enough PDP, so long you're there, how come I can't get work yet? Well, if we have to hire everybody, then we can't have any capital development works either. And then 4 years from now, the same people we hire will turn around and say, you ain't doing nothing, right? And so we have to use those capital development works that are needed as investments to create employment opportunities for our people. while at the same time getting communities the things that they needed for a very long time. We cannot do business the same old way. This administration cannot be the flip side of PNM. This cannot be a PDP version of what PNM did. And it's one of the reasons why I stepped out and gave the instruction that we will remove Dr. James from the spell board. And actually this month is his last month there, because they were preparing some reports, some important reports. We decided to let them prepare a report, and as soon as the report is finished, which is this month, he will be completely moved from there and over to venture capital, as I said. Is why and that's notwithstanding the fact that many of our supporters felt we should ignore them and leave him there, because we had former secretaries who had sisters who were on board and this and that. And I said, no, this cannot be a PDP version of a PNM government. It has to be different. And being different means that we are not going to do things the same way. Some things that were good, we will continue, no doubt. Some things that were not so good, we will have to change. And so if in the past what happened is that PNM only hire their people alone and just give people work without any real role and function, and they show up to work and you couldn't get the job done, there was nothing there for you to do, then we are not going to do that. If what happened in the past meant that you hire people over 60 years for 5 and 7 years, we are not going to do that. You will only come in as an advisor for a temporary period, because that's what the policy is. We are going to give young people opportunities, which means that for many people who supported the party to get to this place, who felt that I waited 21 years to get an opportunity, the truth is some of you have passed, the opportunity have really passed you by, and you can't now rob a young person of an opportunity just because you are an opposition supporter for all of these years. You have to allow young people to get an opportunity now. And I'm not saying that we're going to strike out every old person. I did say that you can be advisors, that you can give some consultancy for a limited period, but the core of those who are to execute the mandate of this new government must be our young, bright professionals, many of whom have been sending in resumes and have asked for an audit across the system for where vacancies exist, so we can advertise them far and wide and bring young people into the conversation, give young people a seat at the table so that they will be able to execute this mandate that we have. It's an awesome responsibility that we have. It is a massive, a gargantuan responsibility that we do have. But I assure you, we are not going to give up. We will make some mistakes. And I will be the first when we make a mistake, as I did in the case of the spell board, to show up here and say, look, we made a mistake. We are sorry. I will take ownership of the mistakes and I will pivot us to a new place, because that's the kind of governance arrangement you voted for, not one where we arrogantly dig in our heels and ignore mistakes and try to cover up mistakes, but one that we acknowledge mistakes were made and we work towards fixing those mistakes. Where accusations of wrongdoing come up, I will be the first to ensure that an investigation is done to look into the matter, as we're doing now with the accusation made in food security. Yeah. Granted that it came from a very dubious source, no doubt. Let's do the investigation. Let the chips fall where they may. I have confidence in this team. We have a team of hard-working young people who get up and go to work. I could tell you that there are days that the day doesn't end at midnight. I myself have had to remind myself, hey, Fali, you're newly married, you have a wife, you have to scale back and save some time for your wife and ensure that the family life, work balance is met. And that's the case of most of our very excited secretaries and assistant secretaries who are at a place full of zeal, ready to move, want to get the system moving, want to get some good things happening. later, probably in a week or so from now, you will hear about some great news to the workers in URP who will get some additional benefits that they have been asking for a long time, and how they're going to get the training element as part of their program. Please, you're not going to lose your job, URP workers. Let me say that up front. But you're actually going to get some additional benefits, because we are about putting people first. We are about ensuring that this government cares for people. Where I think we have fallen down over the last 5 months is that we have not communicated enough. That we just allow, you know, these dubious Facebook posters to post lies and to post propaganda that isn't truthful, and we just ignore them and not respond to them in a timely manner. And so sometimes people start thinking that there may be truth to it. But the truth is, we can't stop to respond every time to these things. Some of these things we have to just let them be, because we're not here to be secretaries of Facebook. We are here to run divisions. We don't have sufficient time in a day. Sometimes 48 hours pass before I am able to check Facebook. I could tell you I'm struggling to keep up with WhatsApp. I have over 2,000 messages because at the victory, messages just flooded the phone. And even some of those congratulatory messages I have not even been able to get to, because as I'm trying to clear some, more is coming in and that kind of thing. And so that's where we're at. But one of the things that we have that is remarkably different is how accessible our secretaries are. We have secretaries who are still in their communities, still doing community work, still going out there and meeting with people, keeping their little community sports initiatives and bringing the community together as we come out of COVID, and bringing some hope and sense of joy to people. I myself, I go every Tuesday, I go to my district. If this Tuesday I'm on the east side, which is Speyside, Delaford, Speyside, Charleville. Next Tuesday I'm on the north side, which is between Castara and Lansome, just to keep in touch with people, just to ensure that we still get in touch with those who have lost loved ones. Sadly, I can't attend funerals the way I used to. So, I missed a funeral in Charleville on Friday. But when I get to Charleville next time, I'm going to go to the family and give them my little contribution and of course, just reason and sympathize with them, because this we are not just governing, but we're also representing people, and remaining a part of the people and remaining accessible is key to a successful governance. And I am looking forward to giving you your best THA executive yet. I'm confident of that one thing. You will have the best THA executive in this executive.
Mr. Augustine, permit me to say one of the attributes that you have that I am willing to possess or want to achieve is that ability to talk for such a long time. Okay. But as we are about to close our show, I want to thank you so much for joining and staying with us for this remarkable and amazing day. We want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us. It's really a pleasure, and I want to applaud you for your transparency. So I want to say thank you. Please don't forget to tune in tonight at 8 p.m. for The Hour with Glendora Lashley and the 7:30 p.m. newscast with yours truly. So thank you so much for joining with us. As I say always, stay safe, keep smiling, make sure to social distance, wash your hands, and please sanitize. Have a great day and an even better week ahead. Bye, guys.
Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning. Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning.